You have such a crazy power that if you're not careful, folks from deep, dark wells of perspective are gonna infiltrate your dude. You have to watch out because people are gonna try to exploit you. That's the main thing, is people recognizing what you are, who have political agendas, will infiltrate your and then start blowing out their radioactivity into the world, right? That's a fear.
It's been a slow burn, but Duncan Trussell's prediction has finally come true. You can tell there are guests Joe wants to have on, and then there are the ones who infiltrated the podcast, and for whatever reason, Joe feels obligated to host. The types who somehow wormed their way into what Rogan built, only to use it as a platform to push their agenda, something the show was never supposed to be about. Joe built the podcast on a simple idea: bring on people he's genuinely curious about.
Genuine curiosities. The most important fact. If you're genuinely interested in talking to people and genuinely curious, it's interesting to listen to. Right. If there was anything, it would be genuine curiosity. Mm-hmm. I'm genuinely curious about things.
And for the most part, that's still true. Most guests are folks Joe wants to hear from. But over the past few years, especially at the end of 2024, it feels like the very people Duncan warned him about have finally broken through. And now in 2025, they're showing up more often and fans are noticing. These are guests with agendas, like Mark Zuckerberg, who in his most recent appearance used the cast as a rebranding campaign.
You know what? We're also lucky that you got into jiu-jitsu. Because I think that had an effect on you. You look different. When you walked in here today, you look thicker. You look like a different guy. You do. You look like a jiu-jitsu guy now. It's funny. I saw your neck. I'm like, his neck's bigger. Your neck is bigger.
Good.
Are you using iron neck, or is it just from training?
I do like iron neck. But it's but when I started training not just jiu-jitsu but striking, I was like, all right, I want to find a way to do this where I don't like hurt my brain, right? It's like, all right, I need to, I'm going to be running this company for a while. I would like to, stay healthy and not take too much damage. And so I think the number one thing you need to do is, well, in addition to having good partners, is have a strong neck.
Yes.
So, yeah.
I should wear a chain. Humans wear chains. Oversized tee, gold chain, broccoli haircut, dude is speed running through fads. Bro is dressed like an undercover cop. You can tell when Joe picked the guest because the conversation flows naturally and has no real agenda. But when someone like Zuckerberg shows up, it feels scripted. He wasn't riffing about jiu-jitsu because it came up organically. Joe was looking down at his notes, checking off boxes from Zuck's PR team. To longtime JRE fans, it's an insult to their intelligence. It's obvious this tech dork is trying to cosplay as relatable. It's like his new personality is what his team put together from a Cambridge Analytica playbook. Here's what the dumb non-billionaires like. Mention jiu-jitsu, and make sure to be relatable to Joe. You live in a house full of girls, but don't worry, you still think masculinity is cool, and you like hanging with your bros.
I have 3 daughters, no sons, so I'm surrounded by girls and women my whole life, and it's so I think I don't know. There's just something the kind of masculine energy I think is good, and obviously society has plenty of that, but I think corporate culture was really trying to get away from it, and I do think that there's just something. It's I don't know. All these forms of energy are good, and I think having a culture that celebrates the aggression a bit more has its own merits that are really positives. Having a thing that I can just do with my guy friends and and it's just we just beat each other a bit. I don't know. It's good.
It is good.
Yeah,
I agree.
I don't know.
It's
throughout your life where you have an experience and you're where has this been my whole life? And it just it just turned on a part of my brain that I was okay.
Yeah.
This was a piece of the puzzle that should have been there, and I'm glad it now is.
Joe Rogan experience, no. Billionaire propaganda machine, yes. Mark is the only guest who shows up with all his podcast monologues memorized. The guy who made billions by censoring and selling your information is now rebranding himself as a people person. Having guys like Zuck on the podcast is demoralizing for the core fans of JRE. The show used to be the antithesis to everything Zuckerberg represents. Big tech censorship, curated narratives, sanitized conversations. And now that same fan base, the ones who helped build the podcast into what it is, have to sit and watch Joe bend the knee to someone who would have never given him the time of day if he didn't have the platform he has now. Zuck's team knows people are losing faith in mainstream media and are turning to creators they actually trust. So what do? They co-opt it. They study the talking points, craft the optics, and send in the robot overlord to do damage control. But no matter how many jujitsu anecdotes or bro talk segments they prep him with, Zuck still reeks of what he is, an out-of-touch billionaire, one who slithered his way onto the Joe Rogan Experience to propagandize the very audience that built it, in spite of people like him. He's so out of touch he actually thought saying he's a hunter would win people over. Not just any hunter either. Bow hunting, because I'm sure the AI-generated notes his team handed him had bullet points that read, Joe likes bows. Mention bows.
I felt that way when I started hunting.
Oh yeah, hunting too.
Yeah, same kind of thing. You've done a lot of that as well.
Yeah, well, so I mean, we have this ranch out in Kauai, and there's invasive pigs.
You know, that used to be the only way that people got meat. You had to go hunt it. So you had to go actually pull the trigger, kill the animal yourself, cut it up, butcher it, cook it. You knew what you were doing.
Yeah.
And
Although my favorite is bow and arrow.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's, I think, like the most, that feels like the most kind of sporting version of it.
What kind of bow do you have?
Gosh, I didn't get to do it this season, but
do you know the company that makes it?
not off the top of my head. I have a few.
You have to know.
Yeah, no, this is embarrassing. This is embarrassing.
I can get you hooked up.
Yeah, it works.
Okay. Do you know how old it is?
No, it's not old.
Okay.
I think it's like just a compound bow that I got strung to my draw length. And
did you get someone to coach you?
Yeah.
Who coached you?
It's basically a bunch of the guys who help run security around the ranch.
Okay.
The next most hated guest of 2025 is ones that fans waited years for, and somehow he still managed to underwhelm. Zahi Hawass, the so-called gatekeeper of the pyramids. He's to ancient Egypt what Neil deGrasse Tyson is to the solar system. The mainstream-approved expert who shows up whenever legacy media needs a new discovery headline about the pyramids. Longtime JRE fans love Graham Hancock. He spent decades challenging the official narrative with alternative theories about how the pyramids were really built and has made it clear that he's not a fan of Hawass.
I had a debate with Zahi Hawass. He's a leading Egyptian Egyptologist. Back in 2015, it was not my fault that Zahi Hawass walked out on that debate. I can play the video if you like, a minute and a half of Zahi Hawass lambasting me and then walking out and refusing to debate further.
And it didn't take long for listeners to understand why Hancock isn't a big fan. Hawass spent the episode name-dropping credentials, flexing his status, and somehow still couldn't explain half of the things he claimed to be an expert on.
Still to this day puzzles people when they try to figure out how it was built.
I will tell you.
You will tell me how it was built?
Of course.
Okay.
How
do you know?
How do you know?
How do you know?
I found all the evidence of building the pyramid. We published a book, 1,000 pages. This book is the Bible of the pyramids of Giza Plateau.
Okay, tell me how they did it.
Oh, look, everyone, it's the #1 guy in stopping anyone from researching ancient Egypt. After you get through all the scammers at the pyramids, he's the final boss, Joe. So who built the pyramids? Zahi. Me. With hundreds of years of published research on pyramids and thousands upon thousands of hours of video content dissecting every possible theory, Hawass would have you believe he's the only person who's finally figured it out. Even though in the episode all he really did was regurgitate the same textbook facts we've heard a million times. But according to him, he cracked the code. The secret's just conveniently tucked away in his latest book. All you have to do is buy it.
What we found out, the major problem that people think about pyramids, because most of the information that's written on pyramids are wrong.
Most of it?
Most of it.
In archaeology books?
In archaeology books.
Really?
Except me and Mark Leaner.
You guys are the only ones that have it right?
Because have been working in Giza for the last 57 years of my life. I excavated every piece of sand.
Okay, what do the archaeologists have wrong in these archaeologist books?
For example, number 1. They say that the workmen who built the pyramids worked only 4 months a year. When the flood covered the whole country, the king hired the workmen to work in his pyramid. This is wrong, and I will tell you what's correct. Number 2, that the stones used in building the Great Pyramid came from Torah, and Torah is a 25 miles to the east from Giza. And number 3, that Khufu ruled for 23 years. And number 4, that the stones of the Great Pyramid are 2,300,000 blocks.
Not only did Hawass fail to bring anything new to the table about the pyramids, it was painfully obvious he was just there to push his book. JRE fans have learned to temper their expectations because when Joe brings on someone like Hawass, you'd hope he'd challenge them, push back a little, ask the real questions. But just like he does with so many of these guests who are clearly using the platform for their own agenda, Joe doesn't rock the boat. Instead, he lets the mainstream narrative flow unchecked, like the show slowly morphing into just another version of CNN or NBC. Honestly, the only impressive thing about the whole interview was Hawass's ability to demolish a cigar faster than anyone in JRE history.
Can I answer you now?
Yes, please.
Listen, I published an article about, you can find this article.
Why was the age 23 years, why was that attributed to them?
Now, this is a good question. I looked everywhere.
Okay.
Now, before I tell you about what I discovered, I have to complete the scene that I told you. Now, I called the Minister of Culture and I told him, we found an intact tooth.
Most JRE episodes stretch a comfortable 2.5 to 3 hours, but with Hawass it barely cracked 2. It felt like the man was speedrunning a cigar, and the moment it hit the nub, he was out the door. No deep dive, no real engagement, just a hit-and-run promo tour. And in that short window, he somehow managed to show just how out of his depth he was. One minute he's not a scientist, the next he is a scientist. The only thing consistent was the sales pitch. Just buy the book.
I am not a scientist. I took this techniques that they used, and I gave it to expertise. Now I am again.
Do you know?
I'm not a scientist.
Right. So why are you dismissing it, though?
I gave what they published to a scientist, and they said that's not true.
Okay, but scientists are wrong all the time, particularly ones that are biased.
I never heard of it, and I don't want to hear about it.
You don't want to hear about it?
No, why? Because there is no evidence. I am a scientist. Mm-hmm. I believe on what's written in front of me, and I believe of a scene that I can see.
So you don't believe in ancient civilizations capable of advanced construction.
Joe,
you don't believe in aliens.
Joe,
you don't believe in carbon dating.
I am a scientist.
Oh.
If you believe in something, write an article. Then I can read. But don't give me a theory.
But the theory...
But I have been debating Graham Hancock and Robert Bafal and John Anthony West, and I told them from the beginning, your theory will go with the wind.
The next most hated guest of 2025 was another clear case of there's no way Joe invited this guy on purpose. It reeked of behind-the-scenes maneuvering. Some PR team somewhere pulling the strings to get the guy on the biggest podcast in the world. And that guy was Bono, a guest Joe's audience has zero interest in hearing from. Like Zuckerberg, Bono came in locked and loaded with talking points clearly crafted by a PR team that thinks Joe's audience can be won over with a few shallow compliments and surface-level relatability. And like the out-of-touch, almost billionaire he is, Bono kicked things off by awkwardly praising Americans for being American. Because Americans like that, right?
Americans, no matter what political color, they just you see them just the size sort of they just grow in stature when they know they're being useful, because we really need you. The world, we need America. Sometimes it takes putting your money where your mouth is to show what freedom is. America did that. We owe America, and we need you. That's all I want to say. We need you, and together, wow, it's just part of the blessing of America. It's this, okay, so it's less than 1%. It's half of 1% of the government budget to keep all these people alive all over the world. They love America. Because they love America, they're not going to be a problem for America. They don't love it. It takes them away from terrorism, takes them away from anti-Americanism. There is a bigger blessing out there. There's just a bigger blessing, and
there most certainly is.
And it sounds like you're in it.
Remember straight-to-DVD movies? These days we have straight-to-comments podcasts. Bono is one of the most important human beings, and if you don't believe me, you can ask him yourself. What's the difference between God and Bono? God doesn't think he's Bono. As the episode drags on, it becomes painfully obvious that Bono isn't on JRE because he's a fan of Joe or wants to have some raw, unfiltered conversation. He's there to do what so many of these guests do now, push an agenda. And in this case, it's all about criticizing this administration's cuts to USAID. The moment Joe pushes back, even just slightly, the whole facade starts to crack. Bono can't go any deeper than the surface level talking points his team probably fed him on the plane ride over.
Just recent report, it's not proven, but the surveillance enough suggests 300,000 people have already died from just this cut off, this hard cut of USAID. So there's food rotting in boats, in warehouses. There is, I think it's 50,000 tons of food that are stored in Djibouti, South Africa, Dubai, and wait for it, Houston, Texas. And that is rotting rather than going to Gaza, rather than going to Sudan, because the people who know the codes or for the warehouse are fired. They're gone. And so this, I don't know, what do you think? What is that? That's not America,
Well,
is
they're
it?
throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
Right.
Right. This is the problem. The problem is, for sure, there have been a lot of organizations that do tremendous good all throughout the world. Also, for sure, it was a money laundering operation.
Out of all the most hated guests of 2025, none might top the list like Kash Patel. On paper, Patel seems like the kind of guy who Joe would want to talk to, but in reality, he's just another cog in the machine that slowly slithered into the comedy podcast world, not to speak truth, but to muddy the waters. A compromised talking head given a seat of power where his job is no longer to inform, but to gatekeep. And the contradictions were immediate. One moment he admits Epstein committed grotesque acts, and the next he says most of what we've heard about those acts is fiction.
I've said it, Dan Bongino said it, we've reviewed all the information, and the American public is going to get as much as we can release. He killed himself. Do you think, let's play out the logical conclusion of this, do you think that myself, Bongino, and others would participate in hiding information about Epstein's grotesque activities? Or do you think we would also participate in not prosecuting people we had evidence to prosecute people on? But the problem is there's been like 15 years of people coming in and creating fictions about this that doesn't exist. Where's the videotape of an Epstein Island of X, Y, and Z committing these frauds? Why haven't you given it to us? Do you really think I wouldn't give that to you if it existed?
Public defender and head of the FBI saying "why would I lie to you" is the most out-of-touch thing you could possibly say. Being lied to is upsetting. Being lied to poorly is insulting. If Trust Me Bro was a person. Throughout the interview, Patel gives off major, didn't read the book but still trying to fake it in front of the class energy. At one point, Joe hits Patel with the most basic, widely reported facts that the guards were supposedly asleep when Epstein stopped existing. That's not a conspiracy theory, that's what the mainstream outlets have been saying for years. Patel says we're going to get you that information and follows it up with, it's hard to tell from a video if someone is sleeping, but according to the same news outlets, the security footage just happened to be down that night.
I was told what I'd read was that the guards were not paying attention or were sleeping.
Well,
Right?
and in short order, you'll see it.
Is that correct?
Well, it's hard to surmise that from a video, right? Like,
Right.
where they and look, do guards doze off on the night shift? Yeah. But no one can get in to the cell. And if they had gotten in to the cell, you would see it.
But we were told that the cameras were down.
Well, I don't know who said that.
But that was in the news.
We're giving you all the footage we have.
So why wasn't that released like immediately? Why did this speculation escalate?
I think you'd have to ask whoever the attorney general back then was, Bill Barr.
The reason fans dislike Patel so much as a guest isn't just because he dodges questions, it's because he insults their intelligence. Everyone watching knows Epstein is above his pay grade. We're not expecting a full debrief on live air. All he had to do was level with his audience, saying something like, "This case is massive. It touches things that could seriously impact national security. I'm not at liberty to reveal evidence right now, but I'll do my best to get the American people what I can. Just know it runs deep and releasing too much could do more harm than good." But instead, he feeds us polished nonsense. He blames everything on the previous people in charge, which ironically is the same administration that's currently back in charge and still failing to be transparent.
But you can't say that you have it
No, we're giving you everything we have.
so far.
Everything we have so far is
Have
the
you guys
universe.
gone over all the video that's available?
Yeah, that's what I'm telling you. That's what takes so much damn time.
Right.
And
And is there video from the island?
not of what you want. The people out there have filled the void with can't wait to see X, Y, or Z.
Right, speculation.
And I'm like, here's the other thing I've been asking for, right? Openly. If you have information on this, call us. Tell us. The best resource we have is the American people in the world.
Right.
Get me the tail numbers. Get me the flight, get me new information, and I will run that down.
So yeah, if any of you in the public have any flight numbers or information on international blackmail rings, give Patel a call. He'll run that down. That's all I got.